In this session, we'll talk about block events. We'll start by defining what an event is, and then see how they can be triggered and handled. We will also see in detail what is the execution flow when an event is triggered and then handled. An event is an element that allows a block to interact with its parent by notifying it that a particular event has occurred. So, for a block to interact with its parent, we need to use events. Essentially, the block triggers an event, and then the parent will handle it and act accordingly. This means that events are defined inside blocks. These events may have input parameters and be mandatory or not. The input parameters of an event are what allows passing data from the scope of a block to the outer scope of the parent. But why do we need to interact with the parent? Well, the block and the parent have different scopes. So, if a user interacts with elements inside the block, the parent does not know what happened. In this example, if Wednesday is selected inside the block, the screen does not know which option was selected. If there are elements on the parent that depend on this action, it is important that the parent knows what happened, thus an event with the proper information should be triggered to notify the parent. After triggering an event, the parent will have to handle it, if the event is mandatory. The event handler is basically a screen action defined at the parent level. This screen action defines the logic to be executed when the event is triggered, and has access to the values passed as input to the event. Besides those, since the screen action is defined at the parent level, it also has access to the scope of the parent. Let's now see all this in action. Here we have a screen. Inside this screen, we have an instance of the weekday block. The goal of this block is that whenever the end user changes the selected day, it'll notify the parent of that change. If the user selects Tuesday, the associated client action that is defined inside the block is executed. When the trigger event executes, the execution flow jumps to the handler of the instance, and the action, in the parent, executes. Whenever the handler finishes its execution, the execution flow returns back to the flow immediately after the trigger event.